Okay, so watched a Tiger Woods special on ESPN last night, and it got me thinking before I went to bed, which is dangerous because then I have dreams about stuff that I was asking questions about. And I woke up in the morning, came in, did training sessions with some of our athletes, had some great conversations, and one of our athletes, she does a lot of mental coaching, psychology type of work. And so my conversations with her are they're incredible. They're a lot of fun. And they're even more fun when there's other people here. The reason why I bring it up today is because Tiger Woods is in a sport where it is so mental that your internal conversations really show up in your performance, not only consistently, but almost immediately. And you got to be careful what you're saying to yourself because it can take over, the way that you do things. Now, it can play in a couple of different ways. Getting back to the person that we work with that's in the psychology field, this morning, I bring it up when somebody says something that I know is not helpful for them, or it's not as helpful as it could be. Because they might be using it in a positive way, but it might be a negative way to get to that positive. So just like you can use negative energy to get a positive, and you can also use positive. So positive is always going to be better. It's just always a better, more sustainable way to get there. So anyways, this morning, this person said I always forget, or I always goof up on this, or I'm never good at that. And the person was gonna end up turning that into a positive, but it was a negative way to get to a positive. And this person always he always overcomes it and does it anyway. So it's kind of like him joking about it, but it's not a good way to get there. It's a negative self-talk. So I mentioned it to the other person. The other person was like, yeah, if you say that you're bad at that, you're probably creating some resistance in front of yourself that is going to make it more difficult. Now, he's used to pushing through that resistance and getting to the other side, so he's turned that into a positive. But there's probably a better way that's more positive to get there. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because people forget all the time the way that they talk to themselves, the things that they say to themselves that are negative, that some people push through that resistance that makes them stronger and they get to the other side. And that's positive, but there's a better way to do that, and that is have more positive self-talk. And I don't mean in a fake way, in a way that you're lying to yourself, oh, I'm really good at this, and you're not good at that right now. But what you're saying, and if you're clear with yourself, I'm really good at this because I'm going to get good at this because I'm going to stay consistent on this until I get it. That's a different story. It reminds me back to A Course in Miracles here, and not just A Course in Miracles, but also in the teachings of Jose Silva. He did a lot of mind control type stuff, like controlling your own mind, not other people's minds, but controlling your own mind. And one of the things in there he was talking about is ways to remember things, and ways that we remember things, whether we like it or not, are what he called pegs and memory pegs. And I think of a pegboard, but the idea is because you can use those pegs to pull yourself up, or you can use those pegs to just hang your excuses on. And what he was talking about here is kind of almost like ways to remember people's names and things like that, like word association type stuff. But our self-talk also creates these memory pegs. So when we fail on something, and you fail on something, what do you tell yourself? Well, the person from this morning, they tell themselves, oh, I'm not good at this. But then he pushes through and he ends up succeeding anyway. Most people in that situation, if they tell themselves that thing that's negative, oh, I'm just not good at this, they're probably never going to get there because they just keep saying they're not good at this. I'm not good at this yet would be a lot better than I'm just not good at this, right? So make sure that you try to clean up your internal dialogue with yourself, that internal self-talk, because, and I'm not sure who had, I think it might have been Tom Bilyeu or it was Jim Quick or somebody who said, your mind is always eavesdropping on, actually it was Joe Dispenza, I think, who said this. Your mind is always eavesdropping on your self-talk, right? And what it means is your mind's always looking to learn and pay attention. And when you keep on speaking negatively to yourself, it's going to have, usually for most people, a negative impact. And that's how that relates to those memory pegs and making sure that you use better dialogue. The problem is some people don't have really good vocabulary or exceptional vocabulary, and it's because they get stuck in areas where maybe they're not reading, or they're not listening to different things, and they're not stretching or growing and learning. If for no other reason, you don't necessarily need to learn, but learning how to learn is really helpful, because then that helps you apply that when you need that in a particular area and a subject matter. So when you're trying to get a better vocabulary, think about the areas that it would be helpful for you to have a better vocabulary. And here's an example. The native people to the northern Alaska region have, I don't know how many it is, but it's many, many, many words to describe cold weather, snow, and things of that region. Why? Because that's their life. That's where they live. That's their wheelhouse. So your vocabulary, if it's not where you want to be, then where you want to be needs to be where your vocabulary is focused. That sounds a little confusing, but what I'm saying is, just like the people who live in northern Alaska needed ways to describe the very minute differences between one type of snow to another, you would need to be able to describe the things that are more specific to that type of stuff in your life as well. So pick up a better vocabulary, pick up more positive vocabulary, find different words to describe things so that you can experience a higher level of existence. And this is really useful. A lot of people don't think about this, but I mean, imagine when you're reading a book, the way that people frame things in a book and the way that they illustrate whatever it is that they're talking about, a given situation, changes the experience that you have in reading this book. Now, if you read the book and it was at a third grade reading level, you would experience that at a third grade reading level. And that's not going to be the same experience as something that's a little bit more poetic, a little bit more elegant, a little bit more well-constructed, and a little bit more descriptive. So think about that as it relates to your life. Now, just a few things I want to end this with. One, for starters, words matter and they have weight, especially if they're negative. And because words become matter, right? Thoughts become things. But words become matter, and they can lift you up as well. So they can either be weighted or they can be, kind of uplifting. So think about that when you're thinking about the things that you're saying to yourself. What are the things that you're saying to yourself? What are the things that you say out loud or that you say to others? And what are the things that they're saying to you? Think about this, and you don't have to be like that person's like, I don't like what you're saying to me. But you actually should be that person, because if you don't like what somebody's saying to you, if they're being honest, that's fine. Then maybe you need to address something. But you should address something if you're interacting with people on a consistent level, on a consistent daily basis, and they're not speaking to you the way that you want to be spoken to, right? If they're, especially if it's more of a monologue than a dialogue, if they're not really interacting with you, or if it's something that's well, how do I have something to say back to what you just said? It wasn't very nice, and I don't know what the intention was. And you can just be honest and ask them. Some people are like, oh man, you're blowing everything out of proportion. Well, maybe you shouldn't just be sloppy with your words. So, and if you're not surrounding yourself with people who are more intelligent with their words, then maybe you should surround yourself with some different people, some different relationships, some different conversations. So, but that first conversation starts with yourself. And that's a really big thing. And you see this in bullying a lot, you see this in depression a lot, where the conversations that the people are having, the self-talk, is really, really not good. A lot of times it's not even close to accurate either. They're telling themselves stories that just aren't true, but unfortunately they don't bounce them off anybody to get a real reflection on what's actually going on. So again, try to make sure that you put yourself in situations where you can expect more of yourself and you can demand more of yourself, and the same thing for your friends and the conversations that you're having. And that will lift you up. And remember, it's not that we're trying to learn, it's to learn how to get better at learning too, then you can apply that to different areas in your life. And so the next time that you fail at doing something, instead of telling yourself, I can't do that or I'm not good at doing that, just throw the 3-letter word yet in there. I'm not good at that yet, but I'm still trying. Or I haven't done this yet, and I'm still trying. Whatever way is more positive for you, that's going to give you the outcome that you desire, that's what you should do. That's the truth that you should believe in, because that's the truth that's going to have a positive effect on you. I hope you guys use this soon, and have a great day.